Welcome to the Transom Podcast, a monthly roundup of the new features on the transom.org website, providing mathematical puzzles, games, learning activities, and the ever-popular mathematics lesson starter of the day. Here's your host, John Tranter.
And welcome to podcast number 140. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening in, downloading, whatever it's called, but nice to have you here. Anyway, let's get on with it. The puzzle of the month, which is based on a classic puzzle that I've sort of rewritten.
Mrs. Brambleshaw kept a market stall where she sold apples in 3 sizes: large apples at £1 each, medium apples at 2 for £1, and small apples at 3 for £1. 2 medium apples weighed the same as 1 large apple, and 3 small apples weighed the same as 1 large apple. Mr. Barnaby Pickles had a large family. He had the same number of boys as girls, and the youngest children were twin boys. Every other child had a birthday in a different month of the year. He gave his children £7 to spend all together on apples from Mrs. Brambleshaw's stall. If the apples were shared equally among the children, with no apples cut up, how many young Pickles were there?
That's the transom puzzle for this month. The challenge is set. Have a think, make a plan. You have 1 month to figure it out. Send in your solution as soon as you can.
So if you get an answer, I'd love to hear how you solved it. My goodness, how did you solve it? Or your students solve it, for that matter. Anyway, fire off an email to podcast@transom.org. And while you think about that, I'll ramble on about some of the new key resources added to the Transom website during last month, June, as it's July now. My goodness. Anyway, June, what new appeared on the website? Well, gradients isn't exactly new. It's been there a long time, but the gradients activity is now steeper. See what I did there? What I mean by that is there are now 6 levels instead of 2. And the higher levels include parallel and perpendicular lines, along with some questions based on road signs. You know those road signs that show the gradient as percentages or ratios? I haven't seen one for a long time because where I live is very flat here, but yeah, I do remember them very clearly. Anyway, the Help tab contains both a video and an infographic, and a jolly jingle congratulates the student who completes a level. I hope you like these new jolly jingles that are being added to the end of the exercises. I'm deliberately getting the system to play them at a very low volume so that they don't cause too much hassle if a whole class doing an activity in a computer room in a school somewhere or with their laptops. But anyway, I thought it might add to the fun of completing a level as well as being awarded with a trophy, of course. Now, a new similar triangles exercise has been added to complement the similar shapes activity, which has been there for some time. So the new activity focuses on corresponding angles, identifying corresponding sides, finding scale factors, and calculating missing lengths. So that it's different to the similar shapes activity because that includes area factors and volume factors. So the new exercise begins with accessible visual questions and then moves to short answer problems where the pupils need to apply the same reasoning but without relying on the diagrams. So have a look at that if you're doing similarity. A new self-marking activity is called intersecting chords. And in this, pupils use circle diagrams to find missing lengths, starting with intersecting chords inside a circle and progressing to secants that meet outside the circle. And it's a colourful way to practice a theorem that often appears in exam-style questions but can easily be confused without plenty of diagram-based practice. So I've provided that. Have a look at that if that applies to your syllabus. Comparing data. Now, GCSE maths questions on this topic often ask pupils to compare two data sets by writing sentences about averages, spread, and the shape of the distribution. That is not easy for software to mark, those sort of free-range sentences. So this activity takes a different approach. There are 5 ready-made statements for each pair of data diagrams. So there may be graphs, there may be box plots, there may be stem and leaf diagrams. And the students have to choose for these 5 statements which is true, which is false, and which statements cannot be determined from the information shown. So the levels include summary statistics, raw data, frequency charts, as I've said, stem and leaf diagrams, cumulative frequency graphs, histograms, scatter graphs. Oh my goodness, there's so much there. So have a look at that. It's called Comparing Data, and it's good preparation for, I know the older students will be comparing large data sets. So this is really a good foundation for when they get to that point.
The text version of this podcast can be found at transom.org/newsletter.
Now, there's been a maths crossword with a bit of humour involved on the website for a long time. Now there is an advanced maths crossword. It's interactive and it includes a range of mathematical terms from algebra, geometry, probability, with clues designed to test both vocabulary and understanding. So students can type in answers directly into the grid and check their progress as they go. It is aimed at A-level, IB, diploma students. So yeah, it is a bit above GCSE. Now, for decades, I've remembered on my Windows computer that if I hold down the Alt key and type 246 on the numeric keypad, I get the divide sign, which has always been really useful because there's no divide sign on a standard computer keyboard. So I've known this for years and years and years. 246, easy to remember, the first 3 even numbers. So you hold down Alt 246 and you get the divide sign. Anyway, it was only last week that I discovered that Alt 227 gives pi. Now this depends on your PC setup and the code page settings, but certainly on my PC, if I hold down the Alt key, type 227, I get pi. Great, because there's no pi on the standard keyboard. Now, I know there are other ways you can get pi using other keyboard shortcuts, but this is one I tend to remember. And what surprised me this last week was 227 looks rather like 22/7, the famous approximation for pi. And I did a bit of research, and as far as I can tell, it was not a clever decision made by someone designing the old IBM PC character set. It appears to be a coincidence. Amazing. What a very pleasant coincidence it is. So, Alt 227 gives you pi, and Alt 246 gives you the divide sign. Right, little hobby horse, I'll get on here because as the end of term approaches and the end of the academic year for many of the Transom users, well, yeah, my hobby horse thing is that I think that this is a great time, the last week of term, to really celebrate maths and do some fantastic activities that will really be memorable in the minds of the students. I know that sometimes, because not everybody is there in the class, the teacher might be tempted to maybe just show a video or just play a random game or a quiz. But there are so many mathematical ideas that are either fun or maybe have some sort of craft element to them that are very attractive, and it would be a shame not to introduce the students to these great ideas. So, over the years, I have collected together lots and lots of activities suitable for the end of term. There are games, puzzles, quizzes, investigations, and they offer a chance to do something genuinely mathematical while raising the profile of maths as an exciting, interesting, and intriguing subject. So, have a look in the newsletter. Well, I forgot to say actually that all the links that I've been talking about in this podcast can be found at transom.org/newsletter, including the link to the end of term activities page. I'm sure there's something there that will suit you and your group, and I hope you have a happy end of term, end of year by doing one of these activities. Anyway, if you haven't broken up yet, in July there are some dates with very loose maths connections. On the 2nd of July, believe it or not, it's World UFO Day, and there is a starter linked to that date of some strange unidentified alien beings. On the 4th of July, it's the US Independence Day, and there is a nice activity involving the number 4 and a clock. Have a look at that. It's the starter for that day, the 4th of July. On the 11th of July, it's World Population Day, and the starter for that day has a sort of a ticking population clock that changes right in front of your very eyes. And then there are lots of questions that the teacher can choose from to put underneath this ticking clock. Questions about that huge number that's constantly changing. And the 14th of July is my birthday. Thank you very much. Well, I haven't made activities about my birthday personally, but about birthdays in general. So there is a page called Birthdays with lots of maths activities linked to them. Go and have a look at that. Remember, all the links are in the newsletter. And variety is the spice of a good maths lesson, I say. So, here we go. We're finishing off now with the answer to last month's puzzle, which was...
Madame Mushnik was getting ready for the 4-day Solvitude Festival in a land far, far away. The 4 best students were to be rewarded for their superb puzzle-solving skills. The total prize pot consisted of 16 coins. The first coin was worth 1 groan, the second was worth 2 groans, and so on. The coins were to be distributed according to the Solvitude rules. Each student receives 1 coin on each day of the festival. The total value in groans of the coins distributed each day is the same. The total value in groans of the coins received by each student over the 4 days is the same. Can you find a way that Madame Mushnik could distribute the coins so that all 3 rules are obeyed?
Okay, hands up if you realise that this puzzle was very, very closely related to a 4x4 magic square. Yes, if you take a 4x4 magic square, its rows and columns represent the days and students, and the trophies would be the numbers. So not the trophies. What were they? The groans, the coins. Yes, the coins would be the numbers in the magic square. I didn't explain that very well at all, but there are some nice examples. If you have a look at the newsletter, right down at the bottom in the comments section, you'll see some of the solutions that people have sent in, for which I'm extremely grateful, and you'll see that all of them are related to magic squares. In fact, the diagonals don't have to be equal, but certainly the sum of the rows and the sum of the columns or I should say the column sums and the row sums have to be equal.
Then the puzzle's been solved. The mystery ends. There's nothing too hard for Transom's great friends.
So thanks again to those who wrote in. If you've done today's puzzle and managed to figure out the answer to that, please let me know. I'm absolutely intrigued how you did it. So that's all from me. Have a good summer if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. Oh, finally, if you have 12 apples in one hand and 7 oranges in the other hand, what do you have? Big hands. Ha 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 ha.
Thank you for downloading and listening to the Transom podcast. You can find the website at www.transom.org, where you're welcome to use all of the activities absolutely free, or jump in with both feet and become a Transom subscriber.